10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Growing bolder, what's next?
Well, good morning. I'm Laura Savini. So happy to see you on this September morning. We have got lots to talk about today. You know, I've really been thinking a lot about courage. So we're going to talk about courage, and I'm going to encourage you to leave some comments, talk to me, share stories, and we'll get some of those on the air as we go through the show today. But first, I got to talk about what happened this morning. I mean, it sounds crazy, but you know, you get up in the morning, you stumble to the kitchen, you try to pour a cup of ambition, right? We all know this song. Well, I had a little problem with that this morning. Hey, where's the man behind the curtain? Mike Nannis, are you here?
Good morning.
Mike, good morning. What is your morning cup of ambition?
It's got to be strong, whatever it is. It's got to be strong, and it's got to be at least 3 cups.
3 cups. Wow, you're good. You're good.
Indeed.
Well, I got up this morning, fed the cat, you know, got to feed Chai the cat, went to have my tea. I got to have my 2 cups of tea in the morning. Got to have half and half. If there's no half and half, there's a big problem. There was none in the house. You know what I had to do?
That's a crisis to me.
It's a crisis, especially when I knew I had to come and do this. I had to be awake and alert. So I tried it without any milk in it, no half and half, nothing. And ick, did not like. So I had to do something really drastic.
Uh-oh. What'd you do? Oh, my goodness. You know, actually, I think I might have tried that one. Desperate times call for desperate measures. You got to do what you got to do.
It was a little weird at first, but it's actually kind of good. It adds a little sweet, adds a little more body to the tea. It wasn't bad.
Well, the most important thing is that you made it here with us.
I made it, and you and I are caffeinated and ready to have a good show.
Yes, indeed. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks. So, yeah, a little crazy, being silly, but isn't that what it's about? We got to have a little fun, especially when there's so much serious stuff going on. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about courage, because think about 2020. Ugh. Really? Do we have to think about 2020? Well, we're living it, right? And what's been going on? Of course, we've had the pandemic, and we've had the protests, and we have had the politics, and now we have the fires. And to me, it's really tested us, right? It's really tested us to see what we're made of. And we are finding some incredibly courageous people who are standing up and doing what they need to do to keep us safe and just to keep our country going in the direction it needs to go. And I appreciate every one of them. I think about everyone from the caregiver who gets up in the morning and maybe has to give someone a shot or help them with their medicines or help them get out of bed. That's a big deal. That takes courage. I think about, of course, our essential workers who've really been incredibly brave throughout this entire pandemic. And I think about people that have a mental or physical illness and just how hard it is for them just to get out of bed in the morning. And darn, it makes you really want to thank God and the universe for whatever you have, that we are able to get out of the bed in the morning. So I've been thinking about all those different levels of courage. And what is courage? Well, here's the definition. I'm going to read it straight out of the dictionary. It's the ability to do something that frightens you. It is strength in the face of grief or pain. It means doing the right thing, even if it's really, really difficult. Well, coming up today, you are going to meet a man, an American hero, a 69-year-old firefighter, Jeff Converse. He is a 9/11 first responder. In my opinion, he's an angel here on earth. And one might say he's an ordinary man living an extraordinary life. And he is definitely the definition of growing bolder. And I think you are just going to adore this man and really, really enjoy the stories that he has to share. So you're going to meet him in a moment. But first, we have a new season of Growing Bolder coming up on TV. And you are going to find it all across America. It is so inspirational and so excited. Take a look at this promo.
Whoa,
Welcome to Growing Bolder, where we're all friends, and that's important.
Okay, you want to see it, right? And I'm going to tell you how you can find season 6 of Growing Bolder. It is an extraordinary show. The production's great. This team here at Growing Bolder is unbelievable, the stories they find and share. And I'd like you to see them. growingbolder.com/TV. And if you go in there, you can put in your zip code and you will find out where it is showing in your neighborhood. And why don't you take a look at that growingbolder.com page whenever you can? It is chock-a-block of inspirational stories and resources and things that you're really going to want to look at time and again. So I encourage you to log on to growingbolder.com. And this here, what you have is our 21st episode. I meant to tell you that, of Growing Bolder, What's Next? Wow, a seagull just landed on my deck. That was weird. Anyway, so I wanted to tell you about why I was thinking about courage. I heard a news story last week. I heard it on the radio, and they were talking about this couple. They were in bed and sleeping. They were fast asleep. It was after midnight. And all of a sudden, their iPhone went off. 3 beeps, 3 loud alarms. And what they said is, when you hear that, it means get out of the house. Don't get your papers. Don't do anything. Just leave. So the couple grabs a dog. They get in the car. There are flames all around the house. You know what's going on in California. I mean, it's absolutely devastating. And I don't know. I just feel so much for the people there. So they drive out of their driveway, and they notice that the house across the street has flames all around it. And they know that there's a 91-year-old woman living inside. And they know she doesn't have a cell phone. So they know she's sleeping and doesn't know what's happening. So they drive through the flames, okay? They drive through the flames in the driveway. The woman jumps out of the car, bangs on the door, wakes up this 91-year-old woman, says, grab your purse, let's go. They run into the car, and they drive back out of the driveway through the fire. I mean, I get chills just thinking about it. And I think about that move of an ordinary person taking that kind of a risk to save another person. I mean, or would you do that? I mean, I think we would, right? You got to think we would each do that if we were in that situation. And it just really got me thinking about, what does it take to be courageous? And I said, well, we've got to figure that out. I want to understand what it takes to be that courageous. So I thought we would talk to someone who could tell us what it means to be that courageous. So we are going to meet today. We are going to meet a man named Jeff Converse. In 1979, Jeff started as a firefighter for the FDNY. He retired from Squad 252 in Brooklyn, Bushwick, Brooklyn. I think from that you have an idea of where this story is going. Well, Jeff was off on that awful morning of September 11th, 2001. He raced to the site to work on the rescue efforts that day. And he was there for 2 weeks. And all the time he knew that the chance of finding his squad that went there that day was going to be a difficult task. And I'm sorry to say that his squad did all perish that day. And he was there. Jeff was there from September to May during the recovery efforts. He lives a life of service, this man, Jeff Converse. During Hurricane Katrina, he drove a supply truck down to New Orleans and distributed supplies. And you know what he did on the way up? drove an air-conditioned ambulance that he had rescued pets in to deliver them to new homes because their owners couldn't be found. And he spends his spare time before COVID. He was spending his spare time visiting with World War II veterans and sort of collecting their memories and listening to their stories and, giving them the respect they deserve. And we're hoping that he does get to go back to do that before too long. I want you to meet Jeff Converse. He is a 69-year-old assistant captain of the fire department in Locust Valley, New York. He is one of New York's bravest. Jeff, thank you. Thanks for giving us time here today.
Not at all. Thank you, Laura.
Well, I'm a big fan of yours. And Jeff, I was just talking about those fires in California. That's a really difficult and scary kind of fire to fight. Well, what do you think those men are facing that are there, and men, women that are fighting those fires?
It's it's hard to imagine when you see some of the television footage. You get a blaze of that immensity, and it's so wide, and it just seems to go on forever. And you wonder, where do you start? How do you even begin to bring something like that under control? It really boggles the mind, and it's out there. It's very, very physical. It's not going to get accomplished in 1 or 2 days or what have you. So you're going to be in there for the long term. And I have nothing but the complete admiration for the firefighters that are dealing with these wildland fires. It's just amazing to be able to do that day after day with very little breaks and not seeing a whole lot of quote unquote progress from an individual end.
I got to think that would be a really tough part about it, Jeff, is that you don't see progress, and they've been fighting it, and they're in that extreme heat for hours at a time. And I'm imagining it takes a lot of strength.
Yeah, it's strength and stamina. You especially if you have to be working for the entire day. After a while, it gets a little taxing. Obviously, I think there's over 17,000 members of the Cal Fire Service alone, and you don't necessarily work individually, but dragging hose lines, using shovels and other power equipment to create a fire line. It's very, very physically demanding.
I have so much respect for them. That's really hard work. Your work was a little different. You spent most of your career in Brooklyn with building fires most of the time.
Yes.
This is what it's so hard for me to comprehend is where do you draw that strength from that you can walk into a burning building? I mean, I'm going to put it that blankly. How do you walk into a burning building? Aren't you afraid?
Well, when you come into the fire department, obviously, you go through training, and a lot of that training is live fire training, and so you get exposed, albeit in a controlled sense, of at least some of the conditions you can expect to go into if we're this out in the real world, and so once you get done with your training, you get assigned to your station. You're the new kid on the block, but you're working with people that have been doing this. And so you garner a little confidence working with them. And of course, I think most firefighters will remember their first fire when they were given the nozzle, or the first fire where they had to don all their equipment because now they know they're going to work. And you gain confidence, and with confidence you get your experience, and then you can make better judgments. And sure, there's anybody that says they're not scared. They're not really being serious. There is always a little trepidation, but you know that there's something that has to be done, and you're there to accomplish that. So you live past your fears, and the time for thinking about, gee, was I crazy enough to do that? That comes afterwards.
Wow, that's a really fantastic answer, and you put it into perspective there. But I think about you now. I've told the world you're 69, and you're still in the fire business, as they call it. You're an assistant captain. What keeps you at
assistant chief?
Assistant chief. I'm sorry, assistant chief.
That's
in
okay.
Locust.
That's okay.
So you're still out there. You're still, when others may be just like, taking walks in the park or playing cards, you're still there, risking your life to help others. What drives you to continue this work?
Well, I think for me, I started out as a volunteer in my local fire department where I live here, and that was right after college, and it was something to do. My brother was involved, and so I joined, and I found I had a pretty good aptitude. I enjoyed the excitement that occasionally comes, and the adrenaline rush, if you will, and. And although I started out, planning to be a school teacher, that really didn't pan out. And when the city test was offered a few years later, I decided that I said I enjoy this as a volunteer. I think I'm pretty good. So I signed up for it, and the rest is history. It became my life's work, and I still continue volunteering, and it stayed with me. So even though now I'm retired professionally. I still live in this community, and 80% of the fire departments in the United States are serviced by volunteers, and so that's why I've abided with it, and I do what I can. I know that physically, I don't think to pretend that I can do what I was doing 25 years ago with 252. So I'm at a level now as an administrator, as an overseer, where I don't have to physically be doing some of the things that people that are half my age are doing now. So it all works.
Well, you still look half your age, so you must have some aggressive workout regimen that you do. What do you do to keep in the shape so that you can be the assistant chief?
Well, the firefighting, I would think with any other profession that kind of puts a demand on you physically. You have to take care of yourself, and it becomes part of your way of life. You train, and even when you're done working, in my case, being retired, I still train. I still try to maintain whatever quote unquote prowess I still have left physically, and you can do a lot of things to keep your stamina. Whether you run, you take power walks. You go to the gym, but it's part of your regimen. It's in eating a little healthier, perhaps now too. It's part of the regimen so that you can still at least perform and do what's necessary when the time is called and you have to perform.
Well, that's good advice for everybody at all the time. But you've had to do some unbelievable things, and I'm tenderly going to enter into this discussion with you now. I know it's something very hard to talk about, is 9/11. And can you tell us about that day? I know you were off that day. Yes. In the morning of 9/11.
Yeah. I was in between tours, as we would call it. Everybody has a work schedule. In the fire department's case, you would normally work 2 days in a row. You would be off for 2 nights, or I should say you'd be off the following 2 days, and you'd work the next 2 nights, and it would progress. As I said, on 9/11, I was in between shifts, and my next duty date was the following morning. And so I was off entirely. Actually, I was relaxing. The weather was beautiful, as we all remember. And
yeah.
It's my first opportunity to play a game of golf locally. So I happened to be on the golf course when one of our foursome's phone went off, and that's when I got the news about what was going on. And I realized from the immensity of it that this was going to be all hands on deck. So I just ran to my car and went in.
You went in. I was there. I was living in New York during 9/11, and I mean, I can barely tell my story because it's nothing. I just happened to be there and living in New York at the time. And I remember just the chaos, the incredible chaos that was going on in Manhattan. And I remember just thinking, I'm going to die. It was the first time in my life I ever thought that. It's like, I'm going to die today. So let me just grab what I need. I knew I had to go find my cousin who was in the city. I wanted to go find her and get her to safety because nobody knew what was going to happen. And I just threw, basics like socks and eyeglasses and prescription medicine, threw them in my backpack, figuring I was never going to get home that day, Jeff. But I did. And it was kind of, we all sort of mourned heavily for a while and tried to get through life. But eventually my life went back to normal. Yours did not go back to normal. You were there. You were down on the site. You were at ground zero. Tell me, what can you tell me about how you were able to stay strong during the rescue efforts? And we have that picture of you there where you just look so exhausted. Maybe, that probably was like on the 11th or the 12th of September. What are you thinking there when you see this going on all around you?
It's, it's retrospectively, I recall thinking at times, it was surreal what had happened. Even though we're there in the ruins and these once magnificent towers now are just a big pile of rubble. Even though it's already happened, it was still unbelievable. And we know that from my standpoint, that how many people were in these towers at the time when they still came down. There is a mall underneath, if you will, that attaches to the subways that go to New Jersey. So I was thinking, not just me, we're all thinking in terms that there are voids, there are spaces, air pockets, if you will, that those who are perhaps fortunate enough that may have survived this, that they're down there, and it's just a matter of accessing and getting to them as quickly as we could. And yet the area of destruction was so wide. Similar as we talked about the California fires. Where do you begin? Where do you begin? And you're going through and you're hoping against hope that you're going to find somebody alive, not just somebody that's in the fire service. Obviously we're thinking about from a familial standpoint, our brothers from the squad, the other brothers from the other firehouses, the police, the civilians, anybody. We're just hoping against hope that in our efforts to try to get down to these voids, that we're going to come up and find somebody that's alive.
I don't know how you went through that. And that is incredible courage to keep going and day after day and do that. And I can't thank you and your brothers and sisters who helped on that. You were about 50 years old at the time, and this was hard work. And you then went into the recovery stage, and we have a photo of you of what you were wearing probably through that whole winter, going through the winter, continuing now on the recovery aspect of this. And you told me a story once about finding a car that you recognized. Are you comfortable sharing that story?
Yeah, I have no issues with that, telling that at all.
Tell us what happened. You were digging out a tunnel, right?
Yeah, we were given an assignment. This would be the following Monday from the 11th. So that would be September 17th. We showed up for work at the site, and a division chief had come over to us and said, "Squad, here's what you're going to be doing." And they gave us, specialized hearing equipment, boom microphones, things that could pick up, very distinct and small sounds, whether they were breathing sounds or sighs, whimpers, maybe a soft voice. So this was specialized listening equipment. And we went down into the parking levels below what was left of the North Tower. And we got to, I believe, was level 2. Part of it had collapsed into the subway. But the rest of the level was still intact, along with about 18 cars, I'll say. The cars were just like ghosts. They had about an inch of dust on each one of them. But one of them, I recognized the personalized plate. It was a member of a country club that I had been lifeguarding at. He was a very jolly fellow. I knew him and his wife and his family for the years that I've been there. And I said, "Oh my gosh, that's Jonathan's car." And so I put down my rubble bucket and went over. And this individual had worked in the North Tower for Cantor Fitzgerald, and he had he had been there during the first attempted bombing in 1993. After that, of course, the whole place had been reconfigured as far as access going into that restricted parking area. And so here it is. His car was completely unlocked. His personal effects were in there, his keys, his wallet, and I just was flabbergasted to encounter this car of this person that I had known for so long. And it just things happen for a reason, perhaps, but I happened to be there, and here's somebody that I knew, at least his effects, and I just was so taken by it. And as it turned out, to bring the story to a close, there was some rumbling going on. They were moving a crane, and they were afraid of further collapse, so they pulled us out of there. And I decided that I had to do something in that instant. So I opened up the trunk and I gathered whatever personal effects of his I could find, because I wanted to get him back to the family. So I threw him into the bucket, and I ended up doing just that within the next day or two.
That story just gets me, because you were able to bring the cell phone back to the wife, and she could hear his voice again, and you were able to bring back his wallet. And that story is just amazing to me, that you had the courage to do that. And that's just the way fate and God works sometimes, isn't it?
I don't know if it was courage. If anything, it was just that I didn't need any instruction. It was almost automatic. I said, these things might just never reappear. So it just in that moment of time, it just seemed the proper thing to do. So.
It certainly was. I'm sure it brought a lot of comfort to the family. I don't want to stay on this too much, because I know it's awkward for you to talk about it, but 19 years has passed, and I wonder about the rescue and recovery of you. How are you now?
I feel I'll always feel that I just was very fortunate. I continue to feel fortunate. My health is, as far as I know, generally good, and I keep track of things. The fire department, World Trade Center Health Bureau is just I can't speak enough about how gracious they've been to keep track of those of us that were down there, making sure in the time that followed that that everything is still ticking, and if there's any issues that they had ways to offer remedies and direct you to resources. I can't, as I said, they've just done wonderful work, and I guess I like to think that through their auspices, that's part of why my wellness is okay. I did go through a real bout of depression years later. I think I referenced to this. It's called survivor guilt, and that was something I didn't. Maybe I was in denial, but that created a lot of issues for me. And there was a point in my life, years after September 11th, where I was on the verge. I was on the verge. I thought about the people that I had worked with that were gone, that was no longer with us here, and I sometimes think about maybe I could be with them. And luckily, we had resources. The counseling service unit was there. The health people with the fire department directed me to them, and they were lifesavers for me. They were lifesavers, and I went through counseling for years. I still to this day go monthly, just as a checkup for a lot of people that went through this group trauma, and but didn't want to admit it. I guess we're kind of not that we're ashamed. I guess our pride prevents us from coming out and admitting that we've fallen. Maybe we're a little bit weak, and the right people were there at the time to help rescue me and others like me.
Would you recommend counseling for anybody who's going through trauma? Is it a useful tool?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. It has been so helpful to make me understand some of the things that, as I said, I was in denial about, and to realize that what I was experiencing was not uncommon, and that a lot of people who had taken had sort of tried to put it aside and you know and not deal with it up front. So yes, I mean I think there's a lot of to this day. I think there's still a lot of both our members and perhaps with other agencies that might still be of that mindset that they'll deal with it on their own rather than seek assistance. And I can't tell you how much it's helped in my personal wellness.
Thank you for talking about that, because I do know a lot of people feel a little bit of a stigma about if they have a mental or a physical illness or a trauma they've gone through. And I think counseling is a really important thing, especially as we get older, to start getting that off of our chest and to really feel more confident. Tell me now, I know you're very active in the community, and I know none of us can do the kind of thing that you did, and I pray none of us ever have to do the kinds of things that you did. But what are some small acts of courage and bravery we can do in our own community? What do you recommend to us?
Well, there's a number of things. If people have time and they have the gumption to want to avail themselves, and perhaps they have talents or things that they want to do to offer it in service, whether it's volunteering at your local library. I know my sister does up in Maine. She was helping people that use English as a second language. And she works in a food pantry up there. And there's a lot of things one can do in one's community, whether it's a Boys and Girls Club, their after school and sports programs. Those are all largely done by volunteers, not by paid personnel. You can find any sort of ministry if you want, as far as offering aid or assistance. And whether it's even if you're not a religious person, there's nothing that would prevent you from going into a synagogue or a house of worship just to see what's going on, and then later on finding out a lot of these places do community projects and services, and this is how you can sort of speak offer to bring to the table whatever talents you may have to assist, to try to help out, whether it's with a food pantry or any other community activity. There's plenty of things that need to be done, and I think if there's any courage to it, it's sort of like looking around and deciding, well, you know what, if nobody else is going to do this, maybe I'll be the first one to step forward, and in turn that might impart courage to other people to sort of like, oh well, if he or she's going to do that, maybe I'll try that. And so it just means getting a little more involved and taking that first step. What can I do to make things better where I live, or maybe if you're loftier, to see what can I do to help improve the world situation in a small way.
Jeff, that is a beautiful way to end our conversation. That is just so well said. And I thank you for those ideas. And I thank you for sharing with us today and helping us understand what people are going through all over the world, who are taking the risks you did to keep us safe, and encouraging us. Thank you for encouraging us to go out in the community and try to make the world a little better.
Well, thank you.
I was really pleased to talk to you today. Thanks, Jeff. Well, wow, that was a really fascinating look and an inside look at a very, very brave man. He is courage personified, and I know he is too humble to admit it. He's such a good man. That brings us to our meme stream today. And from caring comes courage. It was pretty clear that that is a man that cares about everyone and everything. And that's where that courage comes from. Kindness brings courage. We cannot all be a Jeff Converse, but if we show a little courage each day, we can make the world a better place, like he says. So that brings us toward the close of the show and what's on my mind. And obviously, you know what's on my mind. It's courage. And what can we do? What can we do in this time when people are troubled and anxious? How can we make things a little bit better? And that's going to take a little courage from us sometimes to do that. And I need work on this. Maybe we can work on it together. And I put together a list of things that are easy first steps for us. Relax. I know that sounds crazy. Why is relaxing a small step to courage? You know why? Because when you're quiet for a moment, when you sit in the quiet of yourself, you find your courage. You find your strength in what you're supposed to be doing. The next one, say hello to someone you don't know. I know our parents always told us don't talk to strangers. But you know what? Right now, you don't know how lonely that person is next to you, how they've been handling the sheltering in place, how they've been handling the pandemic, what they're carrying on their back. Say hello, smile behind that mask, give a wave. It does take bravery to be the first person to say hello, but you can do it and you will make someone feel better. Rock the boat. What do I mean by rock the boat? That means stand up, speak your mind, stand up for someone who can't stand up for themselves, make a positive difference. Listen to people. Don't think about what you're going to say next. Listen to what they're saying and try to understand what it is, what their opinion is. And maybe you'll be a little more patient with an opinion that's different than yours. Apologize. That's not always easy, but sometimes it makes a big difference and lets you bridge some gaps. Overlook annoyances. I love thinking about this one because sometimes people just drive you crazy, right? And it takes a lot of courage to just turn the other cheek, just look the other way and let it go. And I encourage you to do that in this time of high anxiety and accept differences. You know, we're all really different from each other. And that's what makes America great, is all these differences and that we all love each other for them. So those are my little ideas of things we can do this week, these small steps to courage. Now, my darling niece, Kristen, showed some bravery these last few months. There she is. She and I took a wonderful trip together. She is getting married tomorrow, and she had big plans for this wedding. She had huge plans, and now it's become smaller plans because of COVID, but she kept that smile. She kept that smile going, and I wish her and Francis a wonderful life. They're going to the chapel tomorrow and they're going to get married, and we can't wait. We're very happy for them. So good luck to them. And that is just about it. I want to thank Mike Nannis for helping me out today. Next week, you're with the big guy. Mark Middleton's going to be hosting with you. I will see you on October 9th. Until then, be kind, have fun, and thanks for being with me this morning.
Growing bolder, what's next?